Fisheries and Oceans in Canada, to me, is one of the most corrupt organizations in Canada, and they do not want to deal with the cultural fallout of shutting down this hunt, so they're going to allow it to continue. And not only that, they're going to protect it from the world's eyes.
Tell about accompanying narwhal hunters and how you were conflicted with telling that story.
That's the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my life. That's the hardest story I've ever had to do. The Inuit are in many ways my protectors, my friends, my people who I grew up with, who I look up to deeply, and I'm out on the sea ice with them, living with the Inuit for many years, and I'm witnessing this hunt over the years. I'm witnessing this hunt that is so out of control, where it went from this meat survival, eat for the community, to basically a modern day ivory trade, and where you have 14-year-old kids with high-powered rifles smoking every whale that goes by, hoping that they're going to get it. And when you start to look at the science, that there's a 5-to-1 sink ratio, that 5 whales are being shot and sunk and lost for each one that they get. Aerial studies have been done that show 80% of them have at least 1 bullet hole wound. And when I have my own aerial pictures of narwhals with 7 bullet holes in them, when I'm watching a grumpy hunter blow the head off a baby narwhal because he's in a bad mood and watch it sink, when I watched another hunter out there who got a female and she's pregnant and she's floating there and he doesn't want it to come off the quota, he wants the male to get the tusk, he punctures her lungs and sinks her under the ice. You know, but at the same time, these people are not bad people, they're not evil people, they're just people trying to scratch out a living. You know, the government, the way it's just this dysfunctional system. And they're trying to make money, you know, and here's a way to make money. If they can get $1,000 for a narwhal tusk, they're gonna go after it. But killing a narwhal is very, very difficult. Only the really exceptional hunters can do it on a regular basis without a lot of waste. It's all these young people coming up, and I talked to the Inuit about it. I did interviews. I went and talked to Fisheries and Oceans Canada about it, and they said, no, it's fine. It's a well-managed hunt, and all things considered, it's just fine. Nobody wanted to touch it. And so after witnessing this for 8 years, watching, you know, being in the water with baby narwhals while the mom's bleeding out to death, that's, you know, way offshore, watching her die a slow death, and a friend of mine watched this female who was killed, and all the males came together and lifted her to the surface on her tusk. It's just like, you know, at some point I went to my editor at National Geographic, I told him the whole thing. He said, well, do you want to do the story now or do you want to do it when they're all gone? It's your choice. And I'm like, shit, you know, I'm going to go do this. And it was just such a sickening feeling. I would sort of cry myself to sleep every night in my tent, witnessing the slaughter of the animals that I loved and also the people that I loved. And even halfway through the story, the Inuit in Arctic Bay started to figure out what I was up to, you know, and because the questioning I was asking, and without even asking me, they called my community where I grew up in Lake Harbor with the Inuit, and they said, Paul Nicklen, we think he's doing an expose on our hunting culture. And like, I was the only one who had access to this. No other film crew could go in and witness this, and because I spoke a bit of the language, and you know, I've been with them friends for so many years, and the people I grew up with said, no, Paul would never do anything bad for the Inuit. He would never say anything bad. The Inuit are, you're either with Greenpeace or you love them. And in their case, like, he loves us, so therefore he could never do anything bad for us. And so to have their trust and to use that in many ways to, through their eyes, fry them, you know, to burn them with this coverage. But in the end, I'm like, the Inuit have a voice, politicians have a voice, you know, everybody has a voice. These narwhals do not have a voice, and I'm watching them get slaughtered. It's like seeing thousands of elephants left dead, you know, on the plains, you know, with just their tusks taken. And in the end, I did it. I went ahead and did it, and it was just the worst experience of my life, to the point that I was just absolutely, you know, nauseous, sick about it. And I released it, and we thought there would be a storm over this story, and it was way worse than we ever thought. Like, it really...
How so?
Just upset the communities, just upset the hunters, upset the people. They're still upset. I mean, I still have many friends in the Arctic, and I still have a lot of my closest friends live in the north, and we stay in touch, but there are also a lot of hunters who are still upset. They just betrayed their trust, you know, and I'd probably do it again. You know, it banned the export of ivory from Canada for a couple of years, but now it's in full swing again. It's still back to it. There's still...
How?
The hunt still continues, you know. So in a community that gets quoted as 150 narwhals, they'll be killing 600 or 700 narwhals just to get their quota, and that much waste and sinking continues. And Fisheries and Oceans in Canada, to me, is one of the most corrupt organizations in Canada, and they not only protect this hunt, it's their mandate to manage this hunt, but they will lie and protect it to the point that, I mean, they do not want to deal with the cultural fallout of shutting down this hunt, so they're going to allow it to continue. And not only that, they're going to protect it and protect it from the world's eyes. And as journalists, this is what we do.
You said you thought you failed that assignment. How so?
I failed in that all I wanted with that assignment was to wake up the Canadian government to manage narwhals better. Of course, the Inuit need to hunt. Of course, they need to live off the land. They need to eat meat. You know, but when the Canadian government allows these hunters to shoot these animals, and they take the tusk and they take the skin and they leave 3,000 pounds of meat rotting on the ice, and there's a 5-to-1 sink ratio, and for the government to say it's more like a 2-to-1 ratio and that's acceptable, I find that such a gross mismanagement of an animal and a population and a species that I don't blame the Inuit. I don't see the Inuit as doing anything wrong. It's like when you allow your kids to go outside every night and get into trouble and, you know, get into drugs and do things wrong, and you never scold them or give them any, you know, and yet you say you're the parent or you're protecting them, but you're not, then all of a sudden things get a lot worse. So in a sense, I failed because all I did was really upset the Inuit, and the Inuit came out of this looking bad, and the government hardly got mentioned. The government can defend themselves. You know, they're very articulate, and they're used to being a bunch of politicians, and they can, you know, worm their way out of anything, whereas the Inuit just came out and just like with egg on their face in this, and that was never my intention. You know, my intention was to wake up the government to all of a sudden find a happy solution to this hunt, and I thought I found the formula of doing an expose undercover thing, and I just really hurt a lot of my friends, and the hunt continues today, so I've failed deeply.